So the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake could be dropping in less than a week. According to a report by Tom Henderson in December of 2025, he reported that the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake, to his knowledge, would be dropping in early January of 2026. He did also say that it's looking likely we would have seen an announcement or a date reveal for that at the Game Awards. Obviously, that didn't happen. That being said, Tom Henderson is a reputable person when it comes to reporting on Ubisoft titles, other gaming titles as well. He reported on the Animus Hub before we saw it. That's Ubisoft's new Assassin's Creed game launcher, and everything he said that he saw came to be true. He also reported on Mirage, Shadows. This guy is in deep with, I guess, connections behind the scenes. So usually when he does report stuff, there's validity to his claims. So the fact that it didn't get shown at the Game Awards doesn't really discredit everything else he said about the game launching in early January of 2026. Maybe Ubisoft just changed their marketing schedule. Maybe they decided they didn't need to show it. And there's also a lot of speculation that we could be getting a shadow drop of the game, which leads into that theory. We're going to be covering everything we know today about Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake, where it started and where it is, and how we might be playing it in just a week. If you're new to this channel and you like everything Assassin's Creed, Prince of Persia, everything like that, stick around, you're in the right place. Subscribe to the Exile Extra, and let's get it. So what I suppose you could call the original Sands of Time remake was shown off in 2021. We got a trailer for it, and that trailer was met with a lot of criticism, a lot of hate. People saying this was no kind of remake, the graphics still look PS2 quality, or maybe PS3 quality. It wasn't what people envisioned a Sands of Time remake to be. And then from that, Ubisoft pretty much went silent. The game was supposed to launch in 2021, but obviously that year came and went with no more news on the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake. And at that point, we were all thinking, is this even going to be a thing? Has it been cancelled? But there was a lot of speculation around whether Ubisoft took that criticism and said, okay, let's just restart it. Let's just take development and just throw it out and do something people actually want. And it seems that's exactly what they've done. Then fast forward to Ubisoft Forward 2024, and we got a very small re-reveal sort of teaser trailer for the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake. Now, this wasn't anything like the original trailer where we saw in-engine footage. This was pretty much a CG tease of how the world might look, with some cool music and then the title logo appearing on screen with the year 2026. So then we had confirmation that Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake was still going to be a thing, and the theory that Ubisoft restarted development kind of gained traction once again. At this point, it was very clear that Ubisoft went back to the drawing board and said, we're gonna redo it from the start, and we're actually gonna make a proper remake. No AA, PS3 style graphics. This time, it's probably gonna be next gen or current gen, whatever you want to call it, visuals, with reworked animations, reworked gameplay overall, or at least that's what we hope it's gonna be. Now, in between the time of the original remake reveal and then the re-reveal of the remake to show that they're still working on it, Ubisoft stated that they moved development to Ubisoft Montreal. Now, if you didn't know, Ubisoft Montreal are pretty much the Ubisoft studio. They make the good Assassin's Creed games. They started the Prince of Persia series, they started Assassin's Creed. A lot of the famous IPs we have in gaming from Ubisoft came from the team of Ubisoft Montreal. So the fact that they're giving the remake to the team that actually made the original, it's at least a good sign. Of course, there's a low chance that really anyone who works on the original Prince of Persia Sands of Time is going to be there still working on the remake. Maybe a few people. It's unlikely to be a lot since the first one, or the original, came out in 2003, but it's at least a good sign. Supposedly, they're trying to make this a lot more realistic. So as we saw in the original teaser trailer for the Sands of Time remake before it was scrapped, it wasn't really realistic looking. It was a lot more, I suppose you could say, stylized. Again, a lot of people said, no, it's not stylized. It's just really crappy PS3 graphics. But I kind of got the vision they were going for. And personally, I wasn't too dissatisfied with what I saw. I love Prince of Persia. You know, I made a whole video about the game over on my main Exile channel, which I'll leave in the description, maybe an end card. And I also made a video about the movie as well, believe it or not, you know. So seeing this remake reveal in 2020, I was like, okay, it looks better than the original, you know, I'll take it, I'll take it. But at least now, with that being scrapped and the remake being supposedly way more modern, way more reworked to the point where it's a proper, or it should be, a proper AAA game. None of that quadruple A. We forget all of that. We'll pretend like that never happens. But AAA at least. I'm not, obviously not complaining. Better is always better. But I am very interested to know what they mean by more realistic. Prince of Persia in his own right was never a realistic series, to be honest. It was based on fantasy. You could do insane wall running, backflips, stuff that no human can really feasibly do. And I would say, and it's kind of hard to say this in the day and age of gaming we have now where it's progressed so much, but looking back at least, I would say the original Prince of Persia games were a little bit more stylized rather than realistic when it comes to aesthetics and visuals. Again, it's hard to say now because the graphics are just PS2 graphics now, right? But at least I would assume that was the case by looking at it, by knowing the feel of the older games. So when Montreal are going for some sort of more realistic approach, it does make me question what that is. Is it just graphics? Are they trying to go for the more photorealistic graphic style approach? Think, for example, Detroit Become Human, you know, a game like that where it's literally trying to be real, like realistic. Maybe that was a weird choice for an example, but you get the gist. Because I can't see in any world where they could actually make Prince of Persia Sands of Time realistic in its actual like world gameplay story without completely remaking a new game. Something that really does interest me is just how much this parkour system will be overhauled. Will it be like the original? Will it be more in-depth? Because Ubisoft's track record with overhauling gameplay mechanics is not the best. You know, you gotta look at the parkour systems of the original Assassin's Creed games and compare them to the parkour systems in recent Assassin's Creed games. They've definitely devolved to the point where there's a lot less control, fluidity in your movements, and overall a lot less fun to play. So it's going to be really interesting seeing a modern Ubisoft title with a competent parkour gameplay mechanic. But Prince of Persia is all about parkour. If you don't have good parkour in Prince of Persia, it's not Prince of Persia, so they can't skimp out on parkour at all. Hopefully though, it might give some pointers towards what Ubisoft could do with the parkour in their current IPs, such as Assassin's Creed. Maybe this will give them the drive to actually make a, again, competent parkour system going ahead. We'll have to see. So let's go back to that January 2026 date. Well, as we saw in the re-reveal of the remake, it did say, in all fairness, early 2026. Ubisoft, and I can't really verify this, so take this with a grain of salt, but supposedly online sources have said that Ubisoft themselves stated that it would come no later than March of 2026. That was said back in around 2022, so a January release date doesn't seem too out of the ordinary, too extreme. I could personally see it happening. Now, will the game get shadow dropped? Well, I mean, it wasn't shown at the Game Awards, so there's one thing leaning into that idea, but I also wonder if Ubisoft could use this title to shadow drop as kind of a testing grounds for the Black Flag remake. 2026 is clearly going to be the year of the remakes for Ubisoft, so I wonder if they're holding off their Black Flag remake for a few months to see how a shadow drop could work under a different IP, to see if it's worth doing the same thing with the Black Flag remake, or if they should start hyping up the marketing for the Black Flag remake. From a business standpoint, it would kind of make sense. If you're dropping something that's not as huge as your main IP, but was very popular in the past, it's probably going to do quite well, but you're also going to want to use that for something such as a shadow drop that, to my knowledge, Ubisoft hasn't done before you just go in and do it with your main big franchise, such as Assassin's Creed. So with that being said, to my opinion at least, everything is kind of leading in to the fact that we actually could see this remake shadow drop at the beginning of January, so in like a week. Shadow drops are kind of cool now, you know, especially after Bethesda proved that they could do it with the Oblivion remaster. Of course, similarly to the Prince of Persia remake, we kind of knew about it beforehand, it got leaked, and so it wasn't too crazy when it was shadow dropped. But to the mainstream, they didn't hear anything about it, and then it just came out and they thought, yeah, I'll play that, and it did numbers. It sold a lot of copies. And Ubisoft are the mimics of the gaming industry. They will see what does well and they will copy that and do as much of that as they can. So to see Ubisoft trying to copy what Bethesda did with their Shadow Drop, I can kind of see that happening, but I can also see them being too afraid to do it with a massive IP. So then they do it with their smaller IP, because let's face it, Prince of Persia is not huge like it used to be, to see if it's worth doing, as I said, for bigger IPs such as the Black Flag remake. So yeah, I think all the evidence is suggesting that next week we could be playing the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake. Of course, this is just my opinion, so take it all with a grain of salt. This is reporting, leaks, rumors. Yes, there's credibility to them, validity, but until we hear actually something official, we can't just say, yeah, it's definitely happening, or why did you say it was going to happen when it didn't, you know? We're all speculating here, we're all giving our theories, and kind of basing it off of a vibe. And that's kind of what I'm doing. So, you know, we could be wrong. There could be nothing next week, and the game could be coming out in a few months' time. But regardless, that's kind of my opinion. Let me know in the comments what you think yourselves. Are you interested in the Prince of Persia remake? Will you be playing it if it looks decent? Did you play the original back in the day? Let me know in the comments. We'll get a conversation going and build that community. If you enjoyed this video, stick around, press a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.